Yo, what is up guys? Guido here, back again with another mini bike video, and in this video we are going to be installing a big valve head on this Predator 212. Now you guys probably saw my last video on this. We installed a F275 cam in this motor. We were running a Mod 2 cam, which is a really good cam, but we swapped that thing out and installed the F275 cam, which is going to be perfect for this application. We're looking to really ramp up and boost up this motor here, and having that high lift F275 is going to be really good for what we're trying to achieve here. And in our other old videos, as you saw, we also upgraded to a 26mm Mikuni. We are also going to be swapping out the jets in this to be getting a little bit more fuel for our big valve head that we are going to be installing on this thing. All right, and here is our big valve monster head here. So it is a Predator 212, or a Ducar, I guess. Non-Hemi head style is what it is. It has 32mm stainless steel SI valves. That's the brand. For the intake, and then it's 28mm for the exhaust, and they are stainless steel valves, which is awesome. It's perfect. That's exactly what we need. Very good durability. I also have a video on how to install upgraded stainless steel valves that are the stock size in the top right up here if you want to click that. Anyways, it already has the dyno cams 32-pound valve springs, the dual valve springs to be exact, with the retainers, and you can see the rocker arms and everything on this is ready to go and it's installed. Also, it has been ported. Check that out. We're going to be getting maximum flow with this head. Look at that. Sheesh, it looks good. So pretty much this is the head that we're going to be installing. I also don't remember if I mentioned this has been milled quite a bit. You can see the difference, how and it's been milled quite a bit. So this is going to be a really good compression booster as well for this motor. So it'll be perfect. We're trying to make the most power out of this little motor here, and it'll be awesome on my dad's bike. I think he'll really enjoy it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start stripping this thing down and pretty much getting into it. It shouldn't be too bad because it's just the head, so there's not really too much involved. But let's just get straight into the video, guys. All right, and the first thing that I'm actually going to go ahead and do before I really start taking a lot of stuff off, I'm just going to take the spark plug out. I'm going to swap that over to the new head, of course, when I'm ready. And I already had to get it kind of loose for my other video, so it's pretty much already ready to just come straight out. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this thing out. And now what I'm going to start working on is taking off this valve cover here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this valve cover off real quick. And the bolts that we have installed on here are 8mm bolts. So I'm using my 8mm socket on here. All right, and with our bolt out, our valve cover can come on off. Just like that. And you can see, I don't have my push rods in or anything, so that's why they're like that. And now what we can do is we could just probably take this gasket off. It probably really doesn't matter too much because this head is going to come off anyways. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and use my Allen keys and remove this whole manifold here that holds this carburetor and everything on here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, so then this head will pretty much be disconnected, I guess, if you want to call it that. Alright, so now I'm going to try to get this gas line off of the carb. Perfect, just like that. And then now that that gas line's off, I can finish removing the rest of these Allen keys here, these Allen bolts here, just like that. Now our whole carburetor is off. I can go ahead and just set this thing to the side. Alright, now that that carb's off, I have a heat shield on this head that I'm also going to go ahead and remove with my same Allen key here. Alright, now with the heat shield off, now this whole entire head can easily just come straight off because there's nothing holding on it or attached or anything like that. Okay, so since there's nothing on this head, it can pretty much come off now. So I'm going to be using my 12mm socket here on my impact gun, so I can just impact all 4 of these bolts off. There's one here, one there, and then there's 2 inside of the head. That's why you have to take the valve cover off. Here's the other one, and then the 2 that are in here. And just like that, your head can come off. And as you can see, this is just your run-of-the-mill bone stock size. Alright, so pretty much this might be a little bit better of a view, so you can see way bigger valves on both of these. And you can pretty much see the complete difference this is going to provide way more compression than something like this would. And I wanted to give a little bit more up close so you could really see the difference of this. This is also a non-Hemi head as well, but you can see how much this thing has been milled. It's pretty much flat, whereas this one here, you can see there is quite a bit of material on there. So it's just not going to be comparable whatsoever to this big valve head here. And like I also stated too, it's ported, so you can see the ports are way bigger on this one, nice and smooth, whereas on this one here, it's kind of hard to see because it's black from the exhaust, but you can see it's way smaller. And this is the bigger side, the intake side, and it's way smaller. So pretty big difference there. Totally worth doing a job like this, that's for sure. And it's pretty much easy as just taking it out and putting it back in. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be reusing our old head gasket. I would recommend probably getting a new one, but this is a higher quality metal valve gasket or head gasket here, which will work pretty well on here. This is what we had on there already running, and it should be pretty good for our clearance. We shouldn't run into any clearancing issues with the valves hitting the piston or anything like that. With our new cam and this big valve head, since it has been milled, there shouldn't be any clearancing issues. So we're gonna wipe this up, clean this little the piston and stuff like that up a little bit, make sure it's all nice and prepared for our new head to go back on. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and put my push rods in, so you can see they just go and fall in all the way down there onto the lifters there. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my head here, make sure it's nice and clean, ready to go. And then I'm going to take my head gasket here, and pretty much I'm just going to line the two together. So now what I'm going to do, like I just said, I'm going to line up the push rods, get them to snake on through, get it through the guide there just like that. And now that that's in there, I'm going to take my head bolts, slide it on through, make sure it lines up with the head gasket. There's the one there. Just loosely tighten it in there just so it lines up everything. Here's the other one that I'm going to just put in loosely. Make sure it's lined up with the gasket. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snug up this head just a little bit, just so it's kind of somewhat tight, so we can make sure there isn't any clearance issues with our head and our piston and our valves. And you can see I'm just looking through the spark plug hole. I'm making sure that this isn't touching anything or coming in contact when the valve is down, which you can see in there, the valve is open. I'm making sure it's not coming into contact with the piston. Alright, and as you saw, it's 100% perfect. There's no clearancing issues with the valves or anything like that. So that was the easy part, and it could have been the hardest part pretty much too, the most catastrophic, but that is perfect. So now what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go and torque down these head bolts right here. I also just went and test fit the spark plug in there to make sure we weren't having any clearancing issues with that either, which we didn't, so we're perfect. Alright, so now that there's no clearancing issues, everything's all good, I'm going to go ahead and torque this head down. Now this head gets torqued to 216 inch-pounds, which I already have ready to go on my torque wrench here. So you can see 216 foot-pounds or inch-pounds there. There. Alright, so now I'm going to reinstall my heat shield, which just goes straight under here. Got to get it lined up. Alright, and with the heat shield back installed, I'm going to throw on the carburetor. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to snug up these Allen bolts here. Alright, so now that we got our carb all back installed, we can put our line back on there. And now we can start messing with our valve lash once it is at top dead center. So I'm going to pretty much show you guys real quick just how to do valve lash. I'll probably do another video too that's way more in depth on this, but pretty much how to set valve lash is you want to look down in the piston there and make sure it's at top dead center. So we're going to just pull start this over until it's at top dead center. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do is actually you're gonna go take the card that came with your cam, because it'll tell you all the specs and everything that you need to actually have before you go and put everything together. Like it says, billet flywheel is mandatory, recommended timing, all that good stuff. It also says what your valve lash needs to be on your intake and exhaust. And for intake and exhaust on this specific cam, is going to be the exact same, and it's usually the exact same for a lot of different motors. It's 0.003 for both. Now with that, you could also go a little bit tighter. You never want to go looser, because what will end up happening is you'll have kickback issues where you're trying to pull start your mini bike and boom, it goes and kicks back right at you. And I mean, that really hurts your hand and your arm, especially when you're using Cobra cord. Like this, we have our aluminum pull start here, which, I mean, when that slaps back at you, it really hurts. You can actually see the damage it has done to this pull starter here from slapping back at the bike. You can see it's dented the side cover there, and this is a newer gas tank, so there's no really damage on there, but you can see on this pull start cover right there, it's dented in, and here dented in from it slapping back at you, which you obviously don't want. So if you ever have any issues like that, always go tighter for your valve lash, never go looser, because that's what gives you the slack in there, and that's what causes it to boom, pull back and slap back at you. So like I said, I'm gonna set it to that, and how you actually do that is you're gonna use a feeler gauge. Right there is perfect, just like that. Too tight, right there, that's perfect. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get our wrench here. We're gonna hold this as straight as we pretty much can have it, and we're gonna tighten this lock nut down on it. And you can see that is pretty much perfect. It's nice and tight. It's the exact amount of resistance that you want on there, but you can see it's still loose, so it's not right up against it and there's not any pressure. You can see exactly what you want right there. A little bit of resistance, but you still want it to be able to go in really nice and easy. There shouldn't be too much where you can't get it in there. All right, so you can see my valve lash is all good. So now I went and reinstalled my spark plug, made sure it was all nice and tight, ready to go. And since this is a non-Hemi head, obviously you can't use your Hemi valve cover with this non-Hemi head. It just isn't gonna work. So we got a brand new non-Hemi valve cover. This thing is super cool, billet aluminum. Has been machined really nice, and as you can see, we have all our barbs all installed on this thing, ready to go. I think later on we're going to run some sort of barb and ventilation from the actual crankcase to our valve cover, but for now this is just the setup that we're going to be running, just like how it was before. All right, and now with this new valve cover, we also have a new gasket, so now all 4 of our bolts can get tightened back on to the head. All right, and you can see I got my spark plug wire back installed. My valve cover is back installed. Like I said, I went and put some medium strength thread locker on there and didn't tighten it too tight. You got to be careful with these guys, because this aluminum will strip real easy, and this is like one of the easiest things to strip out here, because what will happen is if it's not tight enough, it'll leak from this gasket, and then if it's too tight, then you'll strip it. So you got to be real careful. Always have it looser, because you can always tighten it up later on rather than stripping it out. But like I said, it's got a new gasket. It's all nice and tight. Everything's reassembled. It's ready to go. So now what we have to do is just on the bike, our catch can's already mounted. We just got to slip that on over our catch can line, put our exhaust back on, and install our throttle, which is already connected onto the bike, and it should be pretty much ready to rip. Everything's all installed, everything's torqued to spec. So what we're gonna do is, with a little bit of editing magic, we are gonna get this thing all mounted up onto the bike and let the motor kind of break in, since we got a new head on there and a new cam, and then we'll do an oil change, and then we'll have to go for a little ride on this thing. All right, and everything is all tight, everything's bolted up, ready to go on this bike. It is literally gonna be a monster, and unfortunately it is blurred out. You guys have to wait till the next video to see this thing. This bike went through a whole entire overhaul. Everything on this bike got either chromed or powder coated. It is gonna look so sick. It is a completely different color than our good old Rust-Oleum white. After a fashion, that it'll start flaking off, or either the gas or the oil will stain the paint. No more of that. We got a professional powder coat. So guys, stay tuned till the next video so you can fully see this thing all together, and just take a listen on this thing, guys. It is a monster. This thing sounds so, so good. So make sure you guys like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Peace.